Okay, we're getting ready to get started here. We have our expert panel here. We've gathered a group of experts on the restoration side of Volkswagen hobby. So you have questions, please ask them, or we'll just talk about the hobby in general and see what you can learn, and obviously we learn from you. On my right, starting from the left, or your right, I have Mike Yager, our chief cheerleader here at Mid-America. Next to him is Dr. Darby Milnor, Midwest AutoSavers Incorporated. Ken Stanton of MST, Bill Bowman, and Eric Hurst. So, gentlemen, let's start by talking about how many Volkswagens that you've owned over the years. You know, how young you were when you first acquired one. Let's start with you, Mike.
That's an easy one. I was 19. I bought my first car when I graduated from high school. It was a 62 Chevy. Then I bought a 70 Carmen Ghia. Kind of got into the Carmen Ghia side, and I'll duck on this one. I traded my Carmen Ghia in on my first Corvette, and that's everyone says, how come Corvettes and Volkswagens? Well, I started with Corvettes and Volkswagens and older brother's influence. So I've been in this hobby. Actually, I've owned a Volkswagen longer than I've owned a Corvette.
Great. Dr. Darby, how about you?
It's funny, my daughter and I were talking about this morning. She had asked me how many I've owned. 387.
387.
But who's counting?
Whoa. Anybody out there at 387?
388.
Volkswagens. Did you ever have one that you wanted that got away from you?
Several. I've had several. I lament selling to. Usually, if I want one, I find a way to get one. But sometimes you look back, and I'm sure Mike can tell you the same thing, that there's one or two out there that you wish that you'd have kept, and you let slip through your fingers.
And Eric, how many have you owned over the years?
At least 4 of my own. My daughter has one. My son has one. We have 4 right now of ours. And my first one was when I was 16. It was a 1972. It was sky blue with white waggle wheels on it. So we've had a bunch of them.
Ken?
So I still own my first one. Under this blue tent over here to the left of this stage is a 1969 body car, a Manx replica that my granddad built in 1969, and he put it on my his youngest son, my Uncle David's 1960 frame. I bought it from my granddad in 1991 when I joined the Shrine as a third-generation Master Mason and Shriner, and have been playing with that thing ever since. I've got 2 other cars, 59 Beetle that we've kind of done a really good job restoring, I think. Mary drives it around a little bit, but that's my first Volkswagen, and still got it. So we have a total of 3, way less than 387 for sure. But that car out there has been in my family since my uncle bought the frame new in 1960, and then the restoration to turn it into a dune buggy in 1969.
Well, but you have to start somewhere. So three's a start. Doc, you had 3 at one time, right?
He's kind of set the bar here.
So for me, the one that got away is we had a friend of ours that passed away a couple of years ago, and he had a really nice double cab truck, and I thought about it and thought, you know, I'm gonna pass for now. One of them will come around before too long that I'll grab a hold of. I should have taken that one because it was about a third of what I think I could spend today for one.
So what would you share with the people out there about how you don't let it get away from you?
Just dig a little deep in your pocket. I learned a long time ago that as much as, and I know she's listening inside, but I still ask for forgiveness instead of permission. That's just the way it goes.
And Bill, what's your story?
Well, I have, I kind of did some genealogy recently, but it was not family, it was more what I had, and so I actually have an answer. I have 19 over my car career, 19 total, and right now I have 8 of them. I have a 7-car garage at my home, and so most of them are inside, 1 or 2 are out. So my poor daily driver sits outside, and all my old stuff's inside. And of course, my wife has a spot inside, so she's good. But I right now have I have the second car I ever bought. I bought a 70 Carmen Ghia in 1974 out in L.A., and I still have the car. So, yeah.
Doc, I want to ask you this question. I hope maybe that person isn't out here, but did you ever have a problem child that you were glad to get rid of? Or you would admit to it?
You know, I did, as a matter of fact. And it's kind of a funny story. I bought a car from a customer of mine that someone had driven past and thrown a cigarette or a match or something into and burned the inside up. And I fixed the inside, and I drove it for a couple of weeks and never did anything mechanically to it. It had a tremendous squeak in the back end. And a friend of mine stopped by one day, and he says, "Hey, I like the color of that car, and I'd like to buy that car." So we traded. I took a really clean 65 off his hands that had been hit a little bit, and he took this car. And a couple of weeks later, he called, and he says, "You know, the frame's broken on this car. And the engine is leaning over to one side." And a week or two later, he bought it by, and I said, "Well, you're still driving that thing. It's got a broken frame." And he says, "No," he says, "I fixed it." And he took me in the back and folded the back seat down, and he had some all thread up through there. He put a metal bracket underneath the transmission. He had two great big wing nuts in the rear package tray. So
Works.
that was my problem child, but he was very happy with it and his repair.
Thumb nuts do a lot of tighten her down.
So Mike, what are some of the qualities you look for in a car for your museum?
Well, I think everybody up here knows that I bought a 64, 15,363 mile sedan. It's sitting in the install dome. I bought it here yesterday. I've always liked original low mileage cars. So when I find a car that's original and low mileage for sale, you know, what's the price on it? Because there's no yardstick to measure it against. It's just what does the seller want to sell it for. But what I look for, I like to look at chalk markings, screws that have never been off, things that we sell lots of parts, lots of reproduction parts. You look at an original car, and many of the reproduction parts don't follow through on all the detail. And you look at an original car, it's just, you go, wow, these things are really neat. I mean, they're time capsules. So I look for originality in cars. Everybody has their own vision of what they want their car to look like, and that's great. I like original cars. So I just look for those little nuances of original patina, just original parts on the car. I like to talk to people like Bill Bowman and say, "Bill, what do you see in this car?" And that's how you gain knowledge. So when you ask for help on your car, Darby was telling me yesterday things about the distributor cap and the uniqueness of it. And it was a 4-month only production run because of a strike at Bosch. And you go, I didn't know that. I mean, that's how you learn. You just get people that have knowledge, and you ask questions, and you absorb the knowledge.
Gentlemen, anyone can answer this question, and of course, everybody out there in the audience, you have a question, please just shout it up. The Volkswagen bus it's become very popular now. It's you know, the cult is coming back. I had a great time out there walking the grounds, and one of my celebrity choices was a Volkswagen bus. Had some restoration, but it also was very classic. As Mike was describing, the inside of it was still just very, very original. And the couple that I was talking to, they were just so excited about talking about it. So what does our panel have to say about the Volkswagen bus popularity coming back, the cult?
That's my specialty. I love the bus. It's remarkable how in the last 5 or so years they've started to really gain the mass public acceptance and the popularity of the older the model, the quicker they're bought up and then disappear, and they get harder and harder to find. But the values have just been stunning lately. I mean, I just recently renewed my insurance, and I'm sure I underinsured the car because everybody I tell, I valued it at this much. They go, oh man, you've got to up that insurance because they're just skyrocketing. You can watch the internet and try and follow the pricing, but it goes up so quickly. It depends on, of course, the model and the rarity, but I love it. I think it's really good if you have already got some or one and you kind of feel a little proud that you were ahead of the trend, but boy, they are just going off everywhere. It's really hard. People in Europe are coming over here to get them because we have so many more. It's pretty stunning, and I don't see any end to it. Sometimes it plateaus and then it starts climbing again. It's just hard to predict, but I'm just tickled that I have the ones that I want in my collection already, and that I'm really not hunting for. Well, I could get one more, I suppose, but my wife will kill me.
I think the uniqueness of the buses and the trucks, I mean, every one is so unique. I'm talking not Volkswagen, but in the whole automotive history, the uniqueness of the Volkswagen, how they position their buses and trucks from utility to the camping side is just extremely interesting. If you're an automotive historian, it's an interesting piece to do the history. And I know, Bill, you do a lot of research and one of the more knowledgeable guys on the buses. So wouldn't you agree with the uniqueness of the various lines and uses?
Those engineers were quick to adapt to make the single cab, then introduce the double cab, the various deluxes, and then the mid-range lines for families that weren't as the high-end deluxes. It was amazing how quickly they diversified. And my personal fetish has always been the work trucks. I've always liked those and the campers. So that there are people that will tell you that the deluxes are the only thing to get. It's wonderful because everybody can go in a different direction in the hobby. There's plenty of room. I think the only thing restricting us is finding them and then affording to get them put together.
So I buy me a bus. This is for anybody on the panel. I buy a bus. What would you recommend to our people who are listening and that they should be working on or looking at restoring? What are the things that you would do to that bus first to bring the value of it up?
Okay, I'll be brief. I would get the best body on the bus that you could get. Obviously the least amount of metal replacement, but it's also important to know what you want. I mean, if you're just new to the bus crowd, you need to study up and decide whether you're a deluxe guy or a work truck guy or a camper guy if you can find that out, then go find the very best body. Suspensions, engines, that's all easy enough to do. I worry about, in terms of trying to keep your cost reasonable, going for the best frame and chassis and sheet metal.
So
that's where I would
start. Best body. That's where Anybody else want to add to that?
I'll put my 2 cents in and say, quite often I have a customer, a Beetle or a Carmen Ghia customer, say, we've always really wanted a bus. And one of the first things I'll say, and Bill, you know the vehicle very well, is what do you want to do with it? Yeah. They want a camper that they can travel all over the United States in from 1962, and they want to drive it 65 miles an hour. And I'll steer them to a bay window.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to understand the vehicle and to try to, at least, where I'm coming from, to try to place the proper vehicle in the proper hands, because I have many customers that would be extremely unhappy with the more desirable early model bus because it's not as drivable in normal conditions in heavy traffic or maybe at highway speeds. So I personally try to place the right vehicle in the hands of the right driver.
I always coach a new bus person or somebody who's asking about them I said, how slow can you drive on an interstate? I mean, and I'm joking, but I'm not. I tell them, if you buy a bus and try to keep it fairly stock, you are not going to keep up with the fast lane. Don't worry about it. You have to let that go. Let those people roar by you and just relax. Take the right lane. Slow down. Just take your time. Enjoy, the scenery as you go. You're never, unless you massively re-engineer the car and spend a pile of money doing it, and maybe you're successful, maybe you're blowing engines left and right, just relax and go what those engineers designed it for. Just take it for 55, maybe 60, depending on what year you have, what drivetrain. people look at you like you're a Martian sometimes, and then the ones who get it go, okay, I think I can adjust, you know, and of course you can always take them for a spin and show them how it works, you know. It's not so bad to go slow.
It's probably one of the reasons why the hobby's doing so well out in California, because anybody that's dealt with that traffic out there knows you don't have to worry about going 50 miles an hour.
No
So it's really good. Anybody in the audience have a question that you'd like to ask the panel? All right. Well, yes, sir. Cloning?
I think there's a lot of people that obviously will buy a bus and make a window bus out of it. And if that's what they want, that's what they want. I don't have a problem with people cloning a vehicle. I have a problem with people cloning a vehicle and then passing it off as something else. But I'm a believer, when you buy a vehicle, it's yours. You should do with it what you want to do. And you know, again, an original car, then you need to keep it that way. But if it's something that you're going to fix up, and make it your car, make it your vehicle, make it your bus. So, but you can't lie to someone. You can't go out and say, yeah, this is a 23 window bus, and sell it accordingly. You sell it as a cloned vehicle.
How about the most interesting restoration that one of you have done? Eric, how about you? What's the most interesting one you've done?
The 63 ragtop. It's over in the Fun Dome.
The 63 ragtop in
Yes,
front of
sir.
the
Got
Fun
303
Dome.
horsepower at the rear wheel.
Ken, how about you?
So that 59 that I was telling you about earlier, that's our only regular VW. The rest of them are dune buggies. But that 59 showed up at my shop one day. One of my inspectors had blown the motor in it. It was his dad's car, and he had blown the motor in it and brought it up and was going to work on it. I said he could use a part of the shop corner there to do it after hours. And it sat there month after month after month and never moved. Collected a lot of machine shop dust and coolant and everything all over it from day after day of sitting there. And finally went and made him an offer for a few $100 to just take it off his hands. And we ended up buying it pretty cheap. And then it became a project for Stephen, my son, and I, and Mary, my wife. She got to help and put her 2 cents in there. And we spent the next probably year bringing it up to speed so we could make it, you know, drivable and usable. And now we put a little bit bigger motor in it. We didn't go stock with the motor, but we left all the body panels alone. We put the replica interior, the original style interior back in it. Left everything alone, and then just made it where we could go play with it. So it was a fun project, not an original restoration project, but it was fun. It's got a nice 1776 in it that Dwayne built for us when he still, or right after, I guess, he did away with Dynabug, and so it's got a nice motor in it and good and reliable. And we'll hit the road. And that's one of those that we can get out there and run 80, 85 mile an hour in and not
You
worry
can't
about
get it in the left-hand lane, then, can't you?
It's a left laner.
I'm so jealous.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Well, I just finished a 59 double cab that I've been working on embarrassingly for about 20 years, on and off. It's big surges. And it's an unusual vehicle. It's a 4th or 5th month of the initial production of double cabs at Hanover. And it had a lot of challenges, but I think my goal was, I said, once in my life, I'm going to take a car completely apart, every nut and bolt, and then hand it to the painter and let the specialist do the paint work, hand it back to me as a shell, and then I'm going to build my own car by myself or with some close friends in my garage. It was kind of a bucket list thing. I just wanted to do one car completely. Well, now I've got another one lined up. But anyway, the double cab was the one, and it was really fun. It took a long time. Lots of people were, where is it done? When is it done? And I just said, no, it'll happen at my pace. It'll happen as this bus will speak to me. It'll let me know when it needs to be, you know, what needs to be worked on, when it needs to be worked on. And I got it finished a couple of years ago. I've still got a couple of little things to do to it. But it turned out real fun. I learned an awful lot. And I learned I would never want to paint a car. I'll let I'll hand that off to experts. But it was really fun to put the car back together as a one-man car factory, basically. And that was neat.
Yeah, we actually photographed Bill's vehicle in our studio, and that was interesting, looking at the level of detail that you went through. And you can definitely tell that everything had been off of that, cleaned, painted, and put back together. It was a stellar view.
It was fun. It was a good time.
I got an interesting question here. We all know the internet's done so much for us in any kind of car restoration or the hobby or anything that we do at home. I mean, I got to repair the refrigerator. I go look on YouTube. Is there advice that we could share with everybody other than Google it, go to Yahoo? Are there some sites that you'd recommend to all of our enthusiasts out there that they should be looking at and could save some time?
Well, I'll be the first to jump on that. I'm a firm believer in clubs. You buy a vehicle and you want to know something about it, join a Volkswagen club. Guys and gals in that club have done everything you've ever done or need to do. They have the knowledge, they have the experience, they're willing to share it. I'm a big believer in buying literature and reading about the vehicles. That's factory literature to pieces written by experts. I think you can save a lot of money, and if you're going to buy a vehicle for an investment standpoint, spend a lot of money on reading and research and then pull the trigger. And I agree with Bill. If I look at buses and say, what would I look for? The most capital intense piece of a bus is the sheet metal.
Yeah.
And what will make or break a bus is how is the sheet metal work done. So if you buy the best body you can buy, the mechanical and the other stuff, you can do that, and it doesn't have the outward appearance, if you will, that of a bad wavy body and bad panel matchup. So, someone had said, I always hear this stuff about, gee, when you go to Barrett-Jackson and you see buses selling for a couple $100,000, and my viewpoint is they probably lost money at a couple $100,000. Last year there was a Samba 23 window here. Was it a 59, Bill? Do you remember here in the corner, the red one, the barn find?
I think I've got it pictured, yeah.
Yeah, that car sold for $75,000. And if a person were to restore that, last time I was out in the Southern California area, I went to some of the high-end restorers and said, so when someone brings a bus in, what's the budget on it? And they say, well, we start at, number one, it'll be 2 years, and we start at $100,000 to do a bus. And you think about taking a bus all the way down and back up. I mean, Bill, think of the hours and the pieces and the uniqueness.
It's a phenomenal amount of hours.
So you take the hours and the cost and then the paint and the part, and you put it back together. If you have $100,000 or like this $75,000 to acquire one, you're going to have a lot of money in that. Even if you do it yourself, you've got to allocate something for your own labor. So the bus market is extremely volatile in a positive direction, exciting, and probably the coolest vehicle on the road.
I think it's real important that you love the car, too. I mean, if you're doing it as a business or you're flipping it, you're probably never going to put the kind of time and enough effort to make it.
You're never going to love it.
That incredible next level. If you love this car, even if you intend to eventually sell it, you're going to use it for a while. Everybody does move on from project to project. I think it sounds sappy, but you have to kind of love the car to sink the kind of devotion and willingness to spend money on the car and stop and go, this isn't good enough, I'm going to make it even better. For me, yeah, it's an effort that has a lot of love involved.
So joining a club is what you're recommending. How many people out here in the audience are riding with a club? Yeah. So mostly everybody is, and we got some Lone Rangers, but the car does get you into the hobby, and then it's the people that make it a great thing.
And then you obviously go to shows. It does. I mean, you see vehicles at shows. Talk to the owners. Ask them. I mean, I probably, on this 64 I bought, I probably drug up a half a dozen to a dozen people just to say, look at it and tell me what you see through your eyes. You pick up a lot of knowledge that way. You know, other than Darby, not everybody knows everything, so.
See, honey?
And is there anything else you got that you would recommend to our enthusiasts out there where they should be looking for information?
thesamba.com. It's, in my opinion, the best international, it's a US-based site, but there's so much information from so many parts of the planet on there that you can easily learn to search and go, okay, I have this symptom and my engine's bucking, and how do I fix it? And you can go on there and see so many links to other sites, or just flat out, yes, this happened to me, here's how you fix it, or here's how you further diagnose it to see if fuel is the problem or ignition is the problem. Or the Samba is just a wonderful resource, and the guy who runs it, Everett Barnes, is doing it. I don't know how he doesn't charge anybody for classified ads. He's just a real good soul, put together a great site. It's a wonderful asset. I think, if you're not, who isn't hooked up to the web, but that's the place I think to go. There are lots of other good sites, but I think that's my number one.
Anybody else, or everybody agrees that that's the place to go?
I'll agree. I'll agree, and I'll second to Bill that Everett Barnes has just done a phenomenal job over the years in not charging anyone. And as long as my wife isn't listening, I'll tell you that of any of the donations that I make, other than the charitable contributions, I do send Everett a little bit of coin a year to help him along. And I would encourage anyone that regularly uses the Samba, send the guy $5. He's got a PayPal account. Help him out. He does this all on his own.
Yeah, it's got to cost a lot.
And he asks nothing. It's got to cost him a fortune.
Yeah. I think I try as I sell, I don't do it each time I sell something, but I sort of cumulatively go, okay, I'll send him 1%, 2%, whatever it is he's at. They've suggested a 1% donation toward the bandwidth cost. And, every once in a while I go, oh, I haven't done it in a while, so I'll fire him 30, 40, 50. What if I've sold something big, then I send him more. But it's just, thank him for keeping to do it. I don't want him to get any financial stress running it, so it's just a nice source. So yeah, if you do sell stuff, go send Everett a couple bucks. Good guy.
Any questions from the audience? How
Hey,
about
hey, Steve, you can ask me a question. In the Volkswagen culture, everybody names their cars. Lots of people name their vehicles. So I bought a new vehicle. What do you think I named it? You have to ask me that question.
So what did you name it, Mike?
Well, Laurie and I were blessed with a new granddaughter 2 nights ago.
That's right.
And her name's Violet. So guess what the name of our new car is?
Got to begin with a V. It ain't Volkswagen.
Yeah, Violet.
So everybody out in the audience name their car? Everybody has a name in their car? Anybody want to share some of these names with us?
There's been a time or two I've called my car something, but it wasn't the name of the car. Bill, you named your...
Actually, I'm odd in that respect. I'm embarrassed. I have not named any of my cars except for one, and it was Martha. The 55 unrestored sunroof that I have was so well cared for by its original owner. It's still got first paint, totally unrestored interior. It's just a spectacular old car. I drove it from LA to Europe and back. And it's the only car that I've felt comfortable putting a name on. And I'm going to break through that barrier, but right now all I could name was Martha. And it was the original owner's name. She was a mother, then a grandmother. I bought it from her daughter. She told me great stories about them in the car. They never had a radio. It was just, but that name just, every time I walk in a garage, now I actually talk to Martha. The other cars.
Now, I've not talked to my cars, Bill. I may name them, but I haven't been talking to them.
I'm totally gone. I talk to them. But Martha has a name. The other cars, I still haven't figured it out. I want to call them Broomhilda or some great name, and it doesn't feel natural to me. But I know lots of people in my club, they all have names for their cars. It's whether it's natural to you or not. But Martha's the only one I can name.
Yeah, you're sitting down there going, Yager, you name your cars. You're weird. Now, I have not named my cars except for Martha.
Bill, I'm going to start with you and ask everybody to answer this question. And I think this is something that we'd like to share with everybody. Everybody has an obstacle. Everybody has a problem when they're into this hobby or any restoration. So what was the biggest obstacle that you've come across?
Anymore lately, it seems to be finding the car you have to have. But when I was younger, it was finding enough money or budgeting enough to take care of life's necessities and then move over and have this much left over to go get the next thing I needed for the car. So for me, it was a balance of budget and then just finding the model I wanted.
So with that in mind, the budget. So what can you tell our people? Say this is where you should be putting your money first.
Well, today, I think we're more driven by finding the car. I think if you can find it and then figure out how to get it, and even if you have to stop after you have it for a little while and then recover and then move on, get the car, because they're getting harder and harder to find, and more people from around the world are buying them here in the States, and I don't think that's wrong, but a lot of our cars are slowly moving back to where they were. I mean, there's so many cars going back to Europe. It's ridiculous. They came from Europe, and now they're all, they're disappearing. Find the car, figure out a way to get the car, and then if you have to pause, wait for a little while and build up a little more savings and then start tackling it. Once you got it, it's yours. That's half the battle.
Ken?
So I'm still not the guy that's doing the big restoration stuff, but I will tell you this. I bought that dune buggy from my granddad, 1991, early 92. Couldn't really find what I wanted because I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I owned a machine shop and was growing pretty rapidly, and thought, why not just make what I want? It's not going to be cast, it's going to be billet, it's going to be fun, it's going to be pretty, it's going to be all these things. So I started making my serpentine pulley stuff, right, and my other stuff. It just became something to do. Went to a few car shows. Eureka Springs was a big deal for us because it's close to home there in Tulsa, and sold a few back and forth, and before you know it, it became something real and kind of kept me busy in my spare time. So my biggest obstacle was actually designing stuff that I could talk people into putting on their engines that were not original equipment, but was something that would look good and function good and not leak and do all those things. So it was never really, for me, a labor of original restoration. It was always because I had the ability to design and build stuff. How do I build it and try to talk everybody into buying it and using it?
Okay. And
I might mention that Ken is one of our Mid-America suppliers with MST, Motorsports Tulsa. And they've been a supporter of ours for a number of years, and here at Funfest as well as in our daily business. So knowing what Ken puts into the product is very interesting. It's a high-quality product, serves the market very well.
I sure appreciate that. Thank you.
Eric, you got a tale for us?
Yes, sir. I've got the 63 ragtop with the electric fuel injection, and I had the engine built in California, and so they dynoed it with the wiring harness from their factory wiring harness. When they sent me my wiring harness, there was 3 wires that was different, and I spent probably 2 weeks trying to figure out which wires, because there's so many wires that goes to the crank fire sensor, to all. It was just a pain in the butt, and that was my biggest nightmare of the whole job.
Yeah, that wiring will get you every time.
Then, like I said, they'd ran it with their factory harness, but mine was different. They sent me one, they never even ran it with that one. But it was just a matter of troubleshooting for them wires. That's always an obstacle. That was the biggest thing.
Doctor, biggest obstacle?
Biggest obstacle? Quite often, our restorations are the result of someone's dream of owning a specific vehicle, a specific color, a specific model. And those are very easy to do in most cases. You find the color they like, you match it with an upholstery, you talk them into a specific engine for their driving characteristics. The biggest obstacle that we've come across in a long time is actually here in the show field. It's a beautiful little 59 Beetle. It was a virginal original car in excellent condition, and we bagged and tagged the entire vehicle and tried to reuse every piece of the car back in, every bolt and back in its original hole, and tried to keep it absolutely as original as we could. We did upgrade the engine to an Ocrasa, and even that was not difficult. What was difficult was finding some of the original fasteners. There was 3 fender bolts on the car that were different from a collision probably 40 years ago. We tried to keep all of the fender bolts, the original manufacturer's names that are stamped on them, and I think the most difficult part of any restoration I've done in the last 20 or so years was trying to keep that car 100% original as it left the factory in Germany.
And Mike, what can you add?
Well, I'm down at Bill's end once again. It's the finding of the cars. You know what? You can always get more money somehow. You can work more hours, whatever. But finding the vehicle, or the other thing is the time to go look at the vehicle. If you're a collector and you've bought a lot of vehicles, you've spent a lot of time on the road looking at vehicles to be disappointed. Probably for every 10 vehicles you look at, you're going to turn down 10. It seems like that at times. I mean, finding the vehicle is the most difficult thing. So what I like about Volkswagen Funfest, the 64 that I bought came here.
It came right to you.
And then I found it. So yeah, that was an easy one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the time to go find and look at the vehicle, and then to be disappointed when you get there because perhaps the buyer has overstated the vehicle or you've overinflated it in your mind, and then when you go there to get it, it's just not quite what you wanted, what you expected.
Well, I'm going to add that my biggest obstacle is, as I've gotten older, it's getting tougher to lay on the ground and work on something and be upside down with my head looking up into the IP, under the dash. Anybody else experiencing that?
No, Steve, it's only you. It's not the getting down, it's the getting up part. The whole line of us here say it's the getting up.
We get it much slower nowadays, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? I don't. So I'm going to answer the panel as we try to wrap it up. So what advice do you want to leave everybody with?
Go to car shows, talk to owners, read about your cars. The way you can enjoy them, the more you know about them, the more you enjoy them. That's my advice.
I've got just 2 words: drive them.
Yeah.
Enjoy them.
Absolutely.
There's 2 more words.
If you're not happy with something, find somebody else to help you with it to get it done the way you want it done. Except if you take it to somebody and they did it wrong, just leave it as that's the way it is. Find somebody that can help you with it, do it right, and be happy with it all the way through then.
And joining a club helps you do that. You can get plenty of help. Maybe sometimes a little bit too much, but you get plenty of help by getting club members in there.
So I do all those things too, right? Join the club, do the reading, do the research, drive the heck out of that stuff. I mean, it's a blast. What I can tell you is that my dad used to teach me to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And I enjoy absolutely every day getting to meet people that know things that I don't know and teach me something. I consider it a successful day when I learn something new. I too, Mike, have Corvettes over the years, but I have an absolute blast. This is like a hobby that doesn't ever end. I have more fun doing my Volkswagen stuff than just about anything. So my advice to everybody is get to know everybody around you. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. People love to talk about their car. Yeah. So all you got to do is ask them.
Bill?
Since we're talking mostly today about restorations and the obstacles and the joys of it, I'd say learn what you want to get and what you want to restore, and pick your method. Whether you're going to stay bone stock, you're going to go custom, you're going to modify in the middle somewhere. Kind of make those decisions. You can always change them, but pick the model And then once you can score the car or the vehicle, the bus, then sort of pace yourself. Just don't get frustrated. How many times have we all heard of somebody who's selling a car because they got it home, they got all excited, they tore it apart, and then they couldn't figure out what to do with it next or how to do it, and they moved on to something else, and then that project became for sale. Go slow. Fix the car up mechanically if you can do it, if it's possible in your situation. Drive it for a little while. Shake it out. See how you feel about it, where you want to go with it. Make it mechanically sound, and then make your decision to start tearing systems down and then get the car finished. Or if you've got a patina car, how to, put it together. But drive it for a while and make sure you're happy with what you have. That's the time to get rid of it if it doesn't work for you. So pace yourself, pick the right model, do your research. I think you're probably going to be on the right track.
Thank you. So, any questions before we step down? Our panel is available to you the rest of the day. They're all busy throughout the fairgrounds. And on behalf of Mid-America, I'd like to thank our panel and our chief cheerleader, Mike Yager, for having you gentlemen come up here. But I myself, I learned a lot in the last 50 minutes. I think everybody else would. Thank you for your time and questions. Thanks.
Okay. Darby, Eric, Ken, what's your name there in the end? Thank you for taking the time to do this. Now, Darby, go get my car running.